There are some incredibly fascinating people who live in our region, and they are always a joy to interview. I have one of them next on Lakeshore Focus. Stay with us and find out who. Welcome again to Lakeshore Focus, a weekly show highlighting the key issues, important events, and interesting people in our region. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick. My guest today could be described as a dreamer, not the head in the clouds dreamer, but a man who makes things happen. The ideas he has conceived and brought to life have made an incredible impact on our region and rippled way beyond. He's not a face or a name that everyone knows, but you should, and after this interview, you will. Let me introduce you to John Davies. I'm not going to give him your current title yet because I don't want that one thing to define who you are, because you are so many things, John.
Thank you, Keith.
And I'm glad to have you on the show.
I'm honored to be on with you.
I was thinking about calling this the life and times of John Davies, but you know, I thought they've used that before maybe for other people. So
I think there's a little bit of exaggeration here, but it's very uplifting.
Well, I'm just pleased to have you on the show because you've done so many interesting things in this region. And so let's talk about your most current endeavor, which you've been really at for maybe, what, 10 years?
I'm now in my 13th season of seeking innovative people and teams across this great region.
And this is in your role as the founder of the Northwest Indiana Society of Innovators.
As the founding managing director of the Society of Innovators in Northwest Indiana, yes.
Which is really incredible. How many members now have you guys inducted?
Our focus is on individuals and teams. We have a little over 300 members, but when you aggregate the teams who are members, we have over 1,600 individuals just across these 7 counties.
And why did you start this? Where did this idea come up from? Where did this dream come from?
The progression to the need for a society came out of a project I launched in 2004 called the Wall of Legends. And that was based upon the premise that Northwest Indiana has been an incubator of people who in large and small ways have changed the world. And my sponsor is BP. And there are 4 qualities for people to be inducted onto the Wall of Legends. One is a value of exploration. Another is a value of creativity. Another is a value of courage. And another is a value of innovation. And I started with Chanute and with other people who made significant contributions, but I kept running into people in my community of Northwest Indiana who were innovators. And that gave me the idea that we needed to discover and celebrate innovative people. And it took on an urgency when I realized that no institution of higher learning was focusing on innovation.
Why do you think that we haven't celebrated that historically in this region? Because I think that you've brought this to life. You've talked about how important innovation is for our region and that we are innovative. But I don't think historically we've seen ourselves as an innovative place. Why is that?
I think there is a tendency to reflect on those negative things that happen to all of us. But in the case of Northwest Indiana, particularly when I came back 31 years ago, we had lost over 50,000 jobs in the steel industry. It was absolutely devastating to our morale. And I saw an opportunity to be a voice for the positive things in Northwest
Because you're
Indiana.
right, people really kind of dwell on the negatives, and there was a number of negatives that were really happening here, and people were kind of focused on that. But you've always been somebody who's kind of come back and been that positive voice over and over in many ways.
It's a little more complicated. The question that I ask of everyone, including myself, but especially of leaders, is what is the contribution you are going to make, not just to today, but to the future? Because we just look at leadership in the context of leading others. Well, sometimes it's important to be a follower as well. So I ask myself, what contribution can I make that are perhaps uniquely suited to my values and my skills, even though they may not seem terribly significant?
But they are significant, I think. Let me go back real quick to the Wall of Legends to tie that back. How many people are on the Wall of Legends?
Over 65.
Okay, 65 on the Wall of Legends. I know this is putting you on the spot, but do you have a favorite?
One of my favorites, my favorite always will be Octave Chanute, the guy who came here to fly and inspired the Wright brothers. But I especially love Sue Hendrickson, who discovered Sue, and that, of course, is at the Field Museum. And she grew up in Munster.
Which is the dinosaur,
Which
right?
is the dinosaur, okay. Absolutely. So.
And she's from, she grew up in Munster.
She grew up in Munster, okay. And then left. And in the selection of the legends, at first we focused on just those who had done things in Northwest Indiana. And we realized that that was a disservice, that you always carry in some way, wherever you are, Northwest Indiana with you.
Your home, so you may go someplace else and make an impact.
That's correct.
But the basis of that impact started here.
That's right.
Right?
And understanding the values that you received here have made you who you are. But I want to again go back to asking the question, what can you do? Because in my life, I've been fired 5 times, and I found the strength within me to overcome those barriers and to continue to follow my road, which was to make a difference given the limitations that I have in a way that will carry on, hopefully, beyond me.
This is interesting. You and I have known each other for a long time, and I remember there was a point in your life where you didn't really necessarily want to talk about these firings, and you now kind of wear them like a badge of honor. And what changed your mind that was important to share that story about those incidents in your life that have shaped you?
Well, I think all of us have experienced challenges. And in my experience, if we understand the capacity within us to overcome those challenges, it's not only inspiring to us, but it's inspiring to others.
So theoretically, that's a great statement, but people are still afraid to do that. They don't want to talk about their failures or what they perceive, others might perceive as a failure. But you decided to start talking about those, and I hear you talk about them quite a bit now, and what you've learned from them. What are you hoping happens to the audience who hears you talk about those?
Well, I think that the audience at first is probably shocked that I would discuss discuss
I think you're
that.
right, they are.
But then they look at what I've attempted to do, and they say, well, maybe I can try harder than I'm really trying to make a difference. You know, as you know, I came back to Northwest Indiana because I was drawn by a vision. You talk about being a dreamer. And the vision was to turn nearly 50 acres back into a forest. And that vision of being a part of planting seeds and growing great trees, I mean 80-foot walnut trees, was something I felt was a unique life experience.
And that was like 30 years ago, right?
That was
This
over 30 years ago.
And so 30 years ago, you planted these trees. I want you to share the story. How many trees did you plant?
We started with a vision that if the farm we were living on, and where I live now with my wife Joanne, our children have left, that the only way to continue that farm into the future, the only way to make it sustainable, is to create the opportunity for a profit. And so in planting these trees, given the work that I have done over the years in pruning and thinning, the veneer quality of those trees is upwards of 80%. And walnut trees represent a premier wood. And while prices go up and down, they're probably always going to be valuable.
It's been a fascinating investment, but to make this happen, which is pretty interesting, I mean, you've planted about how many trees that have now yielded for you, about how many are still there?
We replanted most of 50 acres.
Okay.
And the principal crop is over 2,000 walnut trees, but there were probably well over 14,000 trees. And the challenge that I faced, which I didn't know at the time, was that each of these walnut trees, starting at 7 inches, had to be pruned and every year. As well as the trees grow, then thinning is a requirement.
It's an amazing endeavor from what I can see, and I just think, wow, that's that many trees. And I know the value of a walnut tree since I cut one down recently, and the guy said, you just kind of got junk wood here, and it's probably worth a couple $1,000s. I'm like, wow, that's kind of amazing. So you've got many more that are much larger.
So if I may,
Sure.
the vision is generation after generation of my family will continue to manage this plantation, grow these trees, and not only hopefully benefit from the sale of these trees, but make a significant contribution to global warming through the metamorphosis that occurs.
Which is amazing to me, because today people are so focused on what I can do for myself now, and you've done something that really is going to benefit your family and the world for a long time. So I just think that's an amazing contribution.
Thank you for that, but I think this needs to be said. Talk to the difference between, talk to the point of an owner-operator or someone who works for a large or even a small organization that is not his or her creation. And what you will find is a similarity in which the owner-operator of something he or she has created is concerned about maintaining an atmosphere where employees, generations of employees, can flourish, and that this business will be here not just to return an immediate profit, but for generations to come.
So the longevity is real important. Let me shift to another thing. You really are kind of the founder of the resurrection of the Southshore Poster series. Can you just kind of tell briefly that story about where you came up? Because at this point, what is there, over 100 new versions of
It's
those?
a very interesting story to me because there were two ideas that I had in about the same time frame. One idea took root and is continuing, and the other idea took root, but not in Northwest Indiana, but it is flourishing within the United States. And I think it is important to understand is why is one idea accepted and the other idea is not. And one idea was the Southshore Posters. And I think this had been tried before, but it was not successful. And I really think it wasn't successful because the right elements were not in place. We had the desire, it was unspoken, but it was ubiquitous, to celebrate the great things in Northwest Indiana, that we reached a tipping point about being negative about our community.
But so all of our viewers know, the posters were actually started over 100 years ago. They were used to market the South Shore.
That's right.
Train line and people coming to the beaches and to Northwest Indiana to the
and they flourished for approximately 5 years, from 1925 to 1930.
And then they disappeared until John Davies.
They disappeared until a focus of making this successful took root. And Mitch Markovitz, the artist, is so associated with the success of the Southshore Posters, but there were a number of other artists that were involved. And it was really a thing of joy to see organizations commission a Southshore Poster celebrating individuals or celebrating work. What I did, and this I think is characteristic of innovators, I joined what's called the Great Conversation. When I learned about the Southshore Posters, I said, I want to know everything I can find out about those Southshore Posters. And I remember completing my last research in Chicago, taking a South Shore train back, and I had this eureka moment. I can do this again. I can recreate this campaign that focuses on great places and great people.
Well, I know there's got to be way over 10,000, maybe 20,000 of those, because you see them hanging in lobbies and people's homes and offices. They're all over the place. So that's a great thing you've done. You had a TV show a number of years ago called What's Right with the Region. Just maybe one show that stands out to you is like, I really am proud of this show. Because you talked about things that were really good going on. There's a theme, John, in here. Positive things going on in our region, things we should be proud of.
I think what's really important, again, is matching need with opportunity. And at the time, I was an entrepreneur. At the time, I saw an opportunity to do a cable television show celebrating the great things about Northwest Indiana. I was offered that opportunity, and I approached a number of sponsors to make that happen. And we produced a number of years celebrating the great things.
About how many shows do you
there were probably 4 years of television shows, and there was at least 2 years of radio programs.
Wow. Does one of the shows stand out to you as one I'm just really proud of, or one just memorable to you, like I really enjoyed this interview or talking about this subject?
I think those shows I remember most, with all due respect, with radio. And I recall a number of conversations that I had with individuals about their life story and the challenges that they faced to overcome a difficulty and how they were ultimately successful.
Does one stand out? Just somebody off the top of your head?
No, not a single program
But just
stands
a lot
out.
of-
But it is just part of the tools that I used in answering the question, what could I do to make a difference in Northwest Indiana?
We're getting toward the end here. It's hard to believe, but we are. So could you tell me one thing that all these things you've done, and we didn't even get into the steel housing thing, so that's maybe another time. But what one thing do you feel that you're maybe most proud of that you've been involved in?
I think, in answer to the steel framing, that was the other idea that I had. And I floated the idea of steel framing, but it took root in the state of Hawaii. And now there's this Steel Framing Alliance celebrating its 30th year. And I'm very proud that I was invited to Hawaii to launch that era. And I'm sorry that it was not successful here because the components were not in place. There wasn't a strong demand for it as there was for people wanting to feel good about the community in which they live.
So what are you proudest of that you've done?
I think I've been a helper to people who had great ideas. And at the same time, I was able to find a way through the challenges to launch the ideas that I felt were important to Northwest Indiana. No better example than the need for innovation. Innovation is the lifeblood of this region. And it dates back to when Chanute launched his glider that eventually was picked up by the Wright brothers. And there are so many examples of great innovation happening.
So the answer to that is probably everything's been important to you from what I can see. Just real quick, why are you such a good interviewer? You seem to bring out people to tell their story. What's your secret?
Because I think people know I really care about their story, their pain, their success, and that they have made a difference. If there's one suggestion I might have, it is important that people feel worthy. And if they feel worthy, they will rise. They will rise.
Well, I feel worthy to have you on the show, that's for sure. And I really know how deeply you care about this region and what's been done. And I want to thank you for all that you've done for this region and will continue to do because I know you're not finished. So thanks for being on the show.
It's my honor. Thank you, Keith.
You bet. To close the show, I would like to talk about the power of a dream. I'm not talking about the dreams we have while sleeping. I'm referring to the dreams we have while conscious. I believe there are two types of dreamers. One type looks out the window, stares into space, or contemplates the color of the sky. These people fantasize about it, think, wouldn't it be nice if, or wonder, one day I hope someone might. The second dreamer may appear to be doing the same, looking out that window, staring into oblivion, or following the clouds, but there is a difference. These dreamers plan the next steps. They think it will be great when, or envision one day I will. Notice the difference? Fantasize, plan. If versus when, and someone might, or I will. The world needs the second kind of dreamers. There's nothing wrong with the first type. I imagine most of us have done our fair share of daydreaming. It's probably even healthy if not taken to excess or becomes a permanent replacement for our second brand of dreaming. We need people who have ideas, plan for change, look to improve, and strive to move forward. Martin Luther King Jr. even had the famous "I Have a Dream" speech. For every Tuskegee airman who risked his life flying cover for bombers in World War II, there were 100 men who said, being a cook won't put me at risk. For every Ralph Braun who invented a way for his wheelchair-trapped body to enter a vehicle and operate it, there are thousands of individuals in wheelchairs who complain about how they can never drive a car. For every Octave Chanute who developed a prototype glider which inspired the Wright brothers, there are 10,000 guys who make paper airplanes. For every John Davies, there are 100,000 people who said, wouldn't it be nice if someone planted a tree for me or my kids or the world? We need more dreamers, not the sleepy, fantasizing, lazy kind, but ones who make it happen. We appreciate every time you turn on Lakeshore PBS and watch one of our shows. Your comments about our interviews on Lakeshore Focus are helpful to us. You can send your thoughts to us through the website or via email, both listed on your screen right now. If you can't find a previously aired show on our website for some reason, go to YouTube, type Lakeshore Focus and perhaps the name of our guest you want to watch, and zing, there it is. Be sure and join us again next week for another Lakeshore Focus. Until then, I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make your dreams come true and make a positive difference in our world today.